You'd be surprised how quiet a prison cell can get when guilt doesn't belong to you. I sit here every day, replaying how one decision, one moment of honesty destroyed everything I worked for. My name is Jason, and before all this, I was a senior finance analyst at one of the most reputable firms in Lagos. 6 years of spotless service. No scandals, no shortcuts. Just a man trying to do right by his work and his conscience. I wasn't rich, but I was proud. I wasn't rich, but I was proud. My mother would smile each time I sent her money. I had a fiancée, Amaka, sweet, soft-spoken, always proud to say her man was a clean man. My coworkers respected me. Some even came to me for advice. One of them was Daniel, friendly, charming, loud. The kind who always had a joke and never seemed to have a bad day. Funny how it's always the loud ones. It started on a rainy Thursday. I was working late, reviewing quarterly reconciliations that didn't quite add up. A payment trail led me to a vendor name I'd never heard before. Alphamax Logistics. Funny thing was, we didn't use them. Ever. And yet, there were regular payments, huge ones. Every month. For almost a year. I blinked, cross-referenced, and my heart dropped. The approvals were forged. I could tell because one of the signatures was mine. But I never approved anything for Alphamax. I double-checked, triple-checked. There was payments in my name, authorizations I never gave. All clean, precise, buried in routine files no one ever checked unless they were like meta-curious for their own good. My hands started shaking. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept asking myself, do I go to HR? Do I alert us? But something told me to be careful. This wasn't some minor error. Someone had gone through a lot of trouble to make this look legitimate, and I had a terrible suspicion who it might be. Daniel. He was in charge of logistics clearance and had access to internal vendor databases. I remembered him always making jokes about how no one checks the books that deep, and how if someone wanted to steal, they'd do it smart. I used to laugh. Now I wasn't laughing. I told myself I'd confront him privately the next day. Not accuse, just ask. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was all a misunderstanding. But deep inside me I knew. He'd just discovered a monster hiding behind a friend's smile. And the scariest part, I had no idea how far he was willing to go to stay hidden, and had access to internal vendor databases.
I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking of my mother's voice, of Amaka's laughter, of everything I stood to lose if I handled things wrong. But I couldn't ignore what I had seen. I had to be sure. So I got to work early the next morning and waited. Daniel came in late, as usual, humming something careless as he walked in with his takeaway coffee. He didn't notice the way I stared at him. Or maybe he did and didn't care. I asked him to step into the back room, the small archive space we used for physical documents. No one ever went there. "What's up?" he asked, sipping his coffee like it was just another Tuesday. "I need to ask you something," I said, locking the door behind me. He raised a brow. "This serious?" I showed him the printouts. Payment logs. My forged approvals. The vendor trail. He took one look, then calmly folded the paper in half and placed it on a dusty shelf. I expected panic. I expected stuttering. What I got was a small, mocking smile. "You shouldn't have seen that, Jason." I frowned. "Is this your idea of a joke?" "No joke," he said. "But you? Digging through files like you're some kind of corporate detective? That's funny. I'm going to report this." He chuckled. "To who? HR? Audit? The same people who get paid bonuses off the back of these same transactions? Jason, grow up. This company isn't as clean as you think. I'm just smarter than the rest." I stared at him, mouth dry. "You forged my signature." "Yes. Because you're a good boy. Everyone believes the good boy." His tone was casual, like we were talking about lunch. "If you come forward," he continued, "I'll flip the whole story. Tell them it was your idea. You approved everything. You found a loophole, and I just went along. Who do you think they'll believe? The quiet guy in finance with no real power? Or me with receipts, contacts, and a 5-year head start?" I didn't speak. "You think being honest will save you?" he whispered, stepping closer. "This world doesn't reward saints. It buries them." And just like that, he walked past me and unlocked the door. Before leaving, he turned and said, "Last warning, Jason. Stay out of this. Or you'll wish you had." I stood in that dusty room long after he left, heart pounding. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just in a bad situation. I was in danger. At first, I thought he was bluffing, just trying to scare me into silence. I kept my head down, gathered more evidence, made copies, backed everything up. I even considered reaching out to an external investigator. I told myself I still had time, but I didn't. 3 days later, The auditors walked in unexpected, cold, and focused. Faces I'd never seen before. Suits, laptops, and stiff introductions. Everyone scrambled. A few people joked nervously. I didn't. By noon, it was clear they weren't here for routine checks. They were here for me. Jason, my manager, called. Can we have a word? Inside the small conference room sat 2 external auditors and the head of HR. I noticed the folder on the table before I saw the look on their faces. There's been some troubling activity linked to your credentials, one of the auditors said. I blinked. I don't understand. Unauthorized payments. Fraudulent approvals. Vendor kickbacks. They laid it out like a crime novel complete with screenshots of emails I didn't remember sending and transactions I'd never touched. My voice trembled. This isn't right. Someone set me up. We have to follow the evidence, HR said flatly. And the evidence was perfect. Email trails forged in my tone. Transactions aligned with my login times. Even a recorded phone call I couldn't explain, where my actual voice was heard authorizing a suspicious transfer. I looked to my manager. She didn't meet my eyes. Worse still? Daniel. He sat in his office calmly, eyes on his screen, sipping his coffee. Not a single wrinkle in his shirt. He didn't even flinch when I passed by. I saw the others whispering. The shift was subtle but immediate. Some stopped replying to my messages. Others avoided eye contact. One guy I used to eat lunch with simply walked away. Just like that, I became the pariah. A ghost in the company I gave 6 years to. And the man who built the trap? He smiled at me as I was escorted out. It happened faster than I could process. A knock on the door at 6:42 a.m. I was still in my boxers, brushing my teeth when I saw the uniforms through the peephole. 2 officers, stern-faced, one with handcuffs already visible on his belt. Jason MBA, one of them asked, though he already knew. My heart dropped. You're under arrest for corporate fraud, theft, and obstruction of justice. The toothbrush fell from my hand. I barely heard the rest. Rights, silence, lawyer. The cold steel on my wrist snapped me back. Neighbors peeked through curtains. One even stepped out to film. I kept my head down, but shame burns differently when it's undeserved. That morning, the world saw a criminal. Only I knew the truth. At the station, they didn't ask many questions. They already had answers, fabricated ones. Documents, messages, audio clips, every thread tied neatly around my neck like a noose. I kept repeating, I was set up. Daniel is the thief. Check the original files. Look at the real logs. They didn't care. Daniel testified a week later. Clean suit. Gentle voice. Convincing concern. I trusted Jason, he said, with tears that looked borrowed. He was like a brother. But somewhere along the way, something changed. The courtroom believed him. The media followed like vultures. Trusted employee turns mastermind, the headline screamed. Fraud of the decade. They called me greedy, manipulative, heartless. A disgrace. Nobody printed my side. Even my family. Changed. My father wouldn't speak to me. My mother, bless her, tried. But I heard the cracks in her voice. Just tell them the truth, Jason, she whispered. I did. But in this world, the truth doesn't always win. I was officially charged. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't angry. I was tired. Tired of screaming into a void that only echoed back guilt. Prison is not just a place. It's a slow erasure of everything that once made you human. The first night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the metal bed, listening to men snore, cry, whisper. Somewhere down the hall, someone was screaming. Not words, just pain. It smelled like sweat, bleach, and something rotting. My cellmate didn't speak for 2 days. When he finally did, he just said, "You're not the first innocent man in here. Won't be the last." He rolled over and went back to sleep. I used to be someone. People knew my name, greeted me with smiles. Now, guards call me number 4773, and inmates call me new meat. Respect? Gone. Identity? Fading. The silence from the outside world is what cuts deepest. Friends vanished. Colleagues moved on. Even my siblings barely reached out. As if not knowing how to comfort me gave them permission to forget I existed. My name in their phones must sting too much. And yet, every day, I replay everything. The moment I saw the documents. The moment I confronted Daniel. The moment I decided to do the right thing. Was it even worth it? Some days, I tell myself yes. Other days, I want to scream. The food is barely edible. Time passes slowly, like it's dragging its feet on purpose. There's no room for hope here. Only routine. Steel. Regret. Rage. But what eats at me most isn't the cold floor or the locked door. It's the fact that he walks free, living my life, telling my story his way, while I rot in a cage for a crime I didn't commit. Hope doesn't knock loudly in here. It sneaks in quietly, cautiously like a shadow under the door. It came one morning in the form of a letter. A shaky, handwritten note slipped inside an envelope with no return address. Just 5 words. I don't think you did it. My hands trembled as I read it over and over. There was no signature, just a scribbled P.S. I have backups. He doesn't know. I memorized the handwriting. I stared at that line until my eyes hurt. That day, for the first time in months, I sat up straight. Later, I learned it was G-Day, the intern we all overlooked, the quiet one who brought coffee and fixed printer issues. Apparently, he had once overheard Daniel making a suspicious phone call. He didn't think much of it at the time, but the pieces never added up for him. He started digging after I was arrested. And now, he had something. But prison is a maze of silence. Getting a call out, arranging a meeting, convincing anyone to believe you it's a war. A slow, bureaucratic war stacked against people like me. I wrote letters, begged the public defender to meet G-Day. I sent my journal entries to my sister. Every detail I could recall, every transaction, every date, every shift in Daniel's tone. Nobody moved quickly. And why would they? The headlines had already named me the thief. Still, G-Day didn't stop. He messaged former employees, pulled old backups, talked to a journalist quietly, anonymously. It was dangerous. He risked his job, his safety. And for what? For me. Because he still believed truth mattered. That tiny crack, the tiniest, was all I had. But in a place like this, where everything feels dead, even the smallest light looks like resurrection. I'm writing this from a concrete cell with no curtains and no privacy. My mattress is thin. My nights are longer than most people's days. I eat when I'm told, walk when I'm allowed, and speak when I'm permitted. But this story, this is mine, and no one can take it from me. You may never hear my name on the news again. The internet has long moved on. The company replaced me. My old desk now belongs to someone who probably doesn't even know what happened. But I'm still here. Not as the thief they painted me to be, but as a warning. A warning that systems fail. That power protects itself. That sometimes, evil doesn't hide in shadows, it smiles at you from the cubicle across the hall. I'm telling this story because if I stay silent, then Daniel wins. He gets to go on as the trusted employee, the man with spreadsheets and charm, while I rot for his crime. But not anymore. I write so my daughter will one day know that her father wasn't a monster. I write so maybe, just maybe, someone out there who's watching things fall apart will recognize the signs and act before it's too late. I still believe in justice. But even if justice never comes, I've said my truth. And that truth is, I was loyal. I was honest. I was betrayed. And I'm still standing. Even in here. Even now. From me to you, honesty is a powerful tool, but know when to use it. Don't forget to share your perspective, and let us know what you think about this story. And please subscribe for more engaging stories.